I was just watching the greatest music video to have ever been filmed. Eric Pride's "Call on Me." There's a reason why that video is so great, and it's not the art direction.
Welcome back, listeners, to a very spooky episode of the LAZOR podcast, your favorite podcast where two 90s kids comb through classic television with a fine-tooth laser. I am one of your hosts, NeoCal.
And I am the man with the bullshit haircut himself, Christopher Siege.
The most bullshit.
Yeah, I'm feeling very bullshitty today.
The hostest with the mostest.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. Tith. Haircuts. Yeah. Today on the spooky month, we're covering Ash versus Evil Dead.
Yep, episode 14 overall of Ash versus Evil Dead. It originally aired on
Netflix.
October 23rd, 2016.
Ooh, spooky.
Wow. At the time of recording, it's October 25th, so it's kind of funny that we got an episode that aired close to the day we're recording. It's almost like it was meant to be.
Spooky coincidence. Have you been doing anything spooky for the spook month?
Have I been?
Yeah.
No. No, I'm probably
Kind of just snuck up on me.
I'm probably not even gonna do anything for Halloween.
Probably just stay inside, crack open a cold one, and watch
Just
some
like-
Evil Dead.
Just like this. There's some beer drinking ASMR right there.
That's what the people want, damn it. Your nail polish matches that can color.
Oh, so it does.
Yes.
Who could have guessed? For anyone who is curious about what I'm drinking, I am drinking
Granny Island.
I'm drinking Granville Island Lion's Winter Ale. It is a seasonal beer. Also super local too, because you can only get it in British Columbia.
That's right. Dust your hipster hats off of folks, because we're going craft. So
One of our canonized listeners and friend of the show, Lady Glitch 619, has sampled Granville Island Lion's Winter Ale, and she is a fan.
oh well, there you go. See, Canadian made, American approved.
Hey, just like me. Yeehaw.
That's right. Just like our podcasts.
Yep.
Question mark?
That's true, actually. The majority of our listeners are from the US.
Now, here on Evil Dead, we got a certain internet fan favorite, Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, so what
Yeah.
is Ash versus Evil Dead?
What is
back
it?
in the-
That is a good question.
Back in the 1980s, Sam Raimi released, actually, I think it was 79, released a movie called The Evil Dead, which was about a dude named Ash, played by the now legendary Bruce Campbell. It's
We're
about
talking
him.
about the OG one?
Yeah. It was about him and a bunch of his friends who go to a cabin in the woods. They find this book called the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, which a lot of people forget about the Ex Mortis part when they're talking about it, which roughly translated means the Book of the Dead.
Da-na-na, na-na-na-na-na.
It's bound in human flesh and inked in human blood. And when you read incantations from the book, evil spirits called deadites that possess people show up and start causing mayhem.
And
It's
even though
follow-
there's different spells in it, it just kind of has the same effect. Just bad shit happens.
Yeah, people get possessed by demons, and then there's also this malevolent force that we never actually see that chases people through the woods. It's always in a POV shot. It's actually a very clever way of introducing a threat with no money.
Make a sound effect like
And just have people run from it and react. No, it's really
and then
clever.
speed the footage up.
Yeah, it's really clever. I
The
I
Raimi cam.
that's a good name for it, the Raimi cam.
Yeah.
I approve of that kind of filmmaking. It was followed up a few years later in '86, I think. If I'm getting these years wrong, folks, I apologize. I'm going from memory. It's followed up with the Evil Dead 2 or Evil Dead 2: Dead by Dawn, which was basically a remake of the first movie. It follows.
Just a better.
It has
Yeah.
more budget. It has more of a budget. But it follows the same basic plot. Ash and except this time, um, is it Ash and a bunch of friends, or just is it just Ash and his girlfriend, and then other people show up? I can't remember. Anyway, Ash and his girlfriend and some other people are at cabin in the woods. They find the Necronomicon Ex Mortis. It's incantations are read from it. I can't remember if it's the first one or the second one where it's not actually anyone reading the book. It's
But they're playing a tape.
audio recordings. I can't remember if that's the first one or the second one or both.
Now, I always had a problem with that because that's what ended up summoning them.
Yeah.
The tape player.
Yeah.
I think it should be somebody reading it aloud
Mm.
that invokes the magic, not a recording of somebody. That's not how sorcery works. Come on.
Um, so yeah, the Deadites are summoned once again. People slowly start being possessed and dying via the Deadites or the Raimi cam, as you called it. This one gets a little crazier. Bruce Campbell, Ash, Bruce Campbell's gets bit. His hand gets bit. His hand becomes possessed. So to
But
spare,
before it like spreads or before his hand kills him,
yeah, he ends up taking a chainsaw and severing off his own hand.
there's a lot of frantic, psychotic, like I've lost my mind long ago, like laughing and screaming going
There
on,
is.
which I
There's
think only Bruce Campbell could have delivered.
after the thing with his hand, like Bruce Campbell. I was very stoned on the pot the first time I watched this movie many
On the
years ago.
drug.
Yeah, on the devil's lettuce.
Yeah.
Um, the first time I watched this movie, like at least 20 years, more than 20 years ago at this point.
Right, right.
It was very baked. And so after like the mayhem with his hand and all of that, Ash is like kind of like screaming and like freaking out, and there's a there's a bit where like there's a severed like taxidermy deer head on the wall where it just like turns and looks at him and starts laughing.
And he like looks at the deer and he looks at a lamp and,
And
the
then
lamp starts.
imagine seeing that for the first time very stoned. I fucking died. I died
And-
laughing.
And indeed, Ash too, he kind of like starts doing that and copying the furniture and like the lamp. And the camera like spins around and you're like, whoa. Is insanity the only way to beat this thing? Now, does he prevent being possessed because he's insane? Or does he prevent himself from being possessed fully because
He does actually get possessed, though.
he gets possessed and he runs through the woods and a branch hits his head or he runs into a tree and he like passes out and then like the demon unpossesses him.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
Sometimes you get possessed and then they leave.
Where's the good sense in possessing someone who's unconscious if you can't wake them up?
Ashley, wake up.
So the movie Evil Dead 2 ends with this big like climactic scene where this giant like tree monster is attacking the cabin.
There's
And
another dimension and everything's getting sucked into it.
Ash reads a incantation, another incantation from the Necronomicon, which creates a big vortex that starts slowly pulling things into it, including the tree, and indeed him. And the movie ends with him like kind of flying into this portal along with the tree and his car.
And his car, and it does give a little preview when
Yeah,
it spits him out in like a desert.
and we see like uh medieval
Knights.
knights. I was followed up. That was followed up in 1993 by a movie called with a movie called Army of Darkness. I like how in the opening title sequence of that show it says Ash versus Evil of Darkness,
Yeah, it says, does it say Ash versus Evil? It says
or
something different. Ash
Ash versus
versus the Evil Dead.
Ash versus Army of Darkness.
That's it. Yeah. It says something different. The first
Uh,
time I watched that on VHS, I was like, that's different than the title.
the Apparently director Sam Raimi wanted to name the movie The Medieval Dead, but Army of Dark, which would have been a great title. Um,
That
but
is a better title.
the studio wanted something that they could put on a poster, so they went with Army of
Also,
Darkness.
Evil Dead 2 sequels, like sequels are you're right. Army of Darkness sounds cooler
And
on paper. Maybe
I,
I
I
like Medieval Dead.
I think Army of Darkness was also done by a different production company, which is why they had to reshoot the footage of him like in the cabin from the end of Evil Dead 2 and like going into the portal
Yeah,
and like the
the
bit at the
beginning's different than the outro of Evil Dead 2.
yeah, and it's I believe it was a rights issue because they couldn't use that footage. So they just had to reshoot it.
Ah, interesting.
And they ended up shooting it differently to fit the plot of this movie.
And indeed, at the end of Evil Dead 2, the knights kind of like see him come from the heavens and kneel down to him, and he's like, no, no. But in
Uh,
this, the opposite happens when the knights show up.
yeah,
They
yeah,
do not kneel down to him.
they take him hostage. Basically, they arrest him.
They
They put him in
grab him as a
shackles.
slave. Yeah. Right?
Uh,
And
I
indeed, they like try to slay his like car,
yeah,
right? Like they're like
there
hitting it with swords.
there's a very subtle like gag that I always really liked is when Ash and his car are pulled into this portal along with the big like tree monster. When they emerge from the other side, it's like a little twig. It's like a really thin log.
Yeah, that just kind of lands on the car and then bounces off.
It just like lands on the ground along with him in the car. But it's just like
Yeah.
it's just a little like log.
I guess it lost its magic power.
It,
Also, budget. What do you want us to drop a huge evil tree?
yeah, it's just it's a really subtle like sight gag that I've always found really funny.
So yeah,
Um, so
what happens in Medieval Dead?
so in the
A
Medieval Dead,
lot.
Ash has gone back to like the year 1300 or so in England because not only can this portal take you through time, but it can also move you through space.
That's
And
right.
he ends up it he ends up like by bringing the Necronomicon with him, he unleashes the army of the Deadites onto this medieval kingdom, and they end up enlisting his help to try and stop it. And in the process, he, in the old medieval times, makes himself a robotic hand.
He Iron Man's up.
Yeah, makes
He
himself a
had
robotic
the
hand.
make himself a robotic hand before Iron Man did.
That's true.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
so he
it.
makes himself a sweet like hand. Has infinite fuel for the chainsaw, by the way.
Right?
It's a
never
video
runs
game thing, right? Like
never runs out of gas for the chainsaw. And yeah, he ends up stopping the evil in that movie. It actually ends up becoming like he goes up against an army of a literal like army of darkness. It's an army of like skeletons.
they're skeletons, they're like zombies, they're like gargoyle bat. It's an evil undead army.
Yeah, yeah. He ends up stopping them. He ends up going back to his time, and the movie kind of ends with him in because I haven't mentioned this, but he works at a sporting goods store called S Mart. Or no,
Right.
no, he works at a big box store called S Mart in the housewares department.
Housewares, right.
Ash housewares. It's like his catchphrase. Um, Movie ends with him at work, and a deadite shows up, and he gets out his trusty boomstick and saves the day. And
Yeah, because he's telling some like teenager or like some bragging to some other coworker who's like not paying attention or not doesn't believe him.
Yeah,
And he's like, yeah, and they got nasty, got my hand. Anyways, that's how I basically saved the day. And they're like, uh-huh. But then
it got into my hand and it went bad, so I
went
lopped
bad.
it off at the wrist. um,
And obviously nobody believes him, but he gets to relive some former glory because Deadite comes out of nowhere and he's
he takes it out and then grabs the girl and gives her a big wet kiss, and that's the end of the movie.
give me
Have you
some
ever
sugar,
seen
baby.
Have you ever seen the alternate ending of that film?
Remind me what it is.
There's an alternate ending where he is given this potion to basically make him go to sleep to get back to his time, and he's told that for each drop of it that he takes, he will sleep for 100 years. So he starts
And also doesn't age.
he starts taking drops. He's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's like some rustling, and he looks over and then kind of just shrugs. He's like, oh, 5, 6,
7.
and then he goes to sleep. But you notice he did 5 twice.
Right, right. He that's a common thing about him is that he's like
He's very
forgetful.
absent. He's very absent-minded. Yeah.
Absent-minded, yeah.
So he goes to sleep and he wakes up and he emerges from the cave and the camera is just kind of fixed on him. He's like, yeah, I'm back, whoa, and he looks out and then his face just turns to horror and he's like, oh no, no, and the camera like turns around and it's like post-apocalyptic and he's like, I slept too long. And just falls to
I
his
recall
knees.
seeing that. Yeah, I saw that one first, so I thought that was the canon
That's the
ending.
that's the alternate ending. Yeah, there's I think there's an extended cut of Army of Darkness out in the wild that is like a half hour longer or something, and it has that as the ending.
That must have been the first one I watched because I recall that. Yeah, and then seeing the other ending later and being like, this one's lame.
I actually like the I slept too long ending more. I think it's
Me too.
funnier.
It is.
There's been
But the
some evil
canon ending,
there's been some Evil Dead video games over the years. There was one on the PlayStation and Dreamcast called Evil Dead: Hail to the King, which was kind of a Resident Evil knockoff. That game got
oh
mixed
wait, I
reviews.
remember that.
I actually liked that game. I thought it was pretty good for being a Resident Evil clone.
Yeah.
Um, and there was also Evil Dead Regeneration, I think, on the original Xbox and PS2, which was basically like a big like state of emergency type game. If you remember State of Emergency.
I remember State of Emergency,
Yeah.
but I don't remember the Evil Dead one.
Or State of Emergency or Dead Rising, like one of those kind of games.
Did
Where it's like you're one person amongst like hundreds of enemies like all on screen at once.
That's the same studio, right? Like State of Emergency went on to make Dead Rising.
No, actually, State
No,
of
just a pre.
Emergency was Rockstar, and Dead Rising was Capcom.
Right. Right. That's it. Yeah.
I think there's been a couple of other Evil Dead games, and I think also one just came out recently, or is coming out. I don't
Oh,
know.
there's one that's out. And it's an asymmetrical multiplayer game.
Like Dead by Daylight.
It's similar to Dead by Daylight in that they're like survivors, right? So like Ash and other characters from the show. Um, and you go around, you do different rituals or tasks or whatever, and one person is kind of like the Sam Raimi cam, the
Oh,
entity.
cool.
And but what you do is you don't interact directly. You go and collect negative energy and you use that around the level and then use that energy to either spawn skeletons, make traps, possess trees. And if you have enough, you can even like possess some of the survivors and make them like turn like
Oh,
on each
cool.
other.
That
Yeah.
sounds neat, actually. I might have to give that a try.
I think it's on sale on Epic. Maybe it's Steam or whatnot. It's one of those ones where I'm like, I'm barely gonna play it at $50, so I'm gonna wait for it to be like 20.
Yeah, same. That's honestly, I think this might just be an age thing. That's kind of how I feel about most games nowadays.
I yeah, I'm like, oh, that's really cool.
I
And then
can
I like
wait.
look at my library of like 1,000 games, and I'm like, maybe I should play one I've already paid for.
Yeah. I
Yeah, because in a year or two it'll be $20.
I think the last game that I bought at full price, quite literally, was Resident Evil Village, and that game came out a year and a half ago.
Mine was Elden Ring,
Oh yeah.
and I play it in chunks here and there.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Um. Anyway, so the first Evil Dead movie was remade, very loosely remade in 2013. Oops, it was called Evil Dead.
right.
It's
And this time Ashley was uh, a girl, or
no, there
was
was
it?
no Ash character.
No, there was no Ash character. What it was is it was a bunch of friends going on a retreat, but it was to help one of the character's sisters get clean.
Yeah. Um, that
To go out
movie,
there and cold turkey, like
uh,
get off the drug.
that movie completely lacks any of the lightheartedness that the Evil Dead series
It
has.
doubled down on going in
Extreme
insane
gore.
and extreme gore, and I do like it for what it is, but like it could have been called like
It could have been
Cursed
anything.
Cabin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it could have been Cabin in the Woods 3 or something like that.
Or um and there's a chainsaw, but there's not manic screaming while covered in blood enough. There is, oh man, these poor people like crawl, this claustrophobia, there's a hydrophobia, getting trapped in a car as it's like getting sunken into a bog, of crawling under a floor space and like through the mud. There's a lot of fearful things and the kind of, and then when it kind of
It's kind of a
has
trend in horror movies for a while there, like
crawling through the a woman
crawling through
crawling
mud.
through the mud,
Yeah, people being covered in mud.
claustrophobic crawling through like a tunnel.
Yeah,
Yeah, the descents and everything that
especially
followed thereafter.
especially women. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
women scared, claustrophobic, crawling through mud. Yeah,
yeah. That was definitely a trend in horror films for a while there that I think we've moved on from now.
we have. Yeah,
Um,
and so that one was it was okay. And I can't think of anything else beyond the TV show.
and yeah, this show premiered back in 2015, I think, or 2000, yeah, 2015.
It's a little while ago. Yeah.
For the longest time, people were always asking Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, like, when is Evil Dead 4? Like, it got to a point
Right,
where
right.
he would always like when he would do like speaking arrangements and whatnot. Bruce Campbell would always preface saying, "Evil Dead 4 is never happening. Stop asking." But apparently, it is actually happening now, I think. And there's also a sequel to that remake in the works as well
Okay, so there's an Evil Dead 4 with Bruce
with
Campbell,
Bruce Campbell.
but there's an Evil
But
Dead 2 sequel to the most recent one that had
yeah,
a different cast.
yeah.
Huh. Oh,
It, it's
okay.
it's always bizarre to me when you see like remakes of something and then we end up just getting like legacy
I,
sequels after, and so you end
yeah,
up with these two like concurrent franchises going. Um, it's always a weird
kind
thing
of
to
like
me.
how they were like, okay, so Halloween's back, but this one's good. The 2018 Halloween.
Right.
Um, but only the first movie's canon. There's like seven other like cheesy ones. Those are out the window. And we're gonna
Yeah.
call it Halloween. And the second one's gonna be Halloween Kills.
Yeah, and then Halloween Ends, which
Is
apparently
there
isn't very good.
there's wait, there's three?
Yeah, the third one just came out I think maybe a month or so ago.
Oh, I
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
the huh.
Yeah,
Guess I
Halloween
need to check it
Ends
out.
is what it's called. But yeah, apparently it's not very good.
So yeah, there's we're gonna get a bunch of Evil Dead, or a couple Evil Dead things coming. Real quick, also spooky month related. Um, Siege and I are fans of Ye Old Silent Hill.
Yep.
One of those like kind of fans where we're like, we want to see things from it, but we're also kind of like, but we don't want to see bad things from it. I
Mm.
think we both liked the first movie,
Yeah, yeah.
like a lot.
It has some really stilted dialogue, but I think that's probably its only like real big sin.
And it manages to tell a story instead of just being batshit too,
Yeah.
like the story of the cult. And
Yeah, and
yeah,
it really captures the atmosphere of the games well. Like
it feels like, I think it was like a French director,
Christoph
um,
Gans, yeah.
yeah, that did it. But like they liked Silent Hill.
You can tell he's a fan, and he gets it. Some like hokey dialogue aside, like that movie is actually pretty good and pretty faithful to
Like I said, it
what
tells a
Silent Hill is.
story. It's beats as it rises in tension, and it does what it's trying to do. The ending's a little. The ending's crazy, but like the ending at the very end is kind of like odd and
It's ambiguous.
ambiguous. Number two,
Number two is a big old number two.
can't believe how bad it is.
You want to know something funny?
Jon Snow's in it though.
You want to know something funny that you bring that up? That second Silent Hill movie, Silent Hill Revelation 3D,
Everything
was
was named Revelation or Revolution like
uh,
back
that
then.
movie was directed by a director named Michael J. Bassett. Um, guess who directed this episode of Ash versus Evil Dead?
Really?
Michael. Yeah, that's why I thought it was funny that you brought that up. I'm like, oh, that's
We've
a
come full circle, and I didn't even do it on purpose.
weird coincidence. But yeah, though
Michael J. Bassett.
they announced a new Silent Hill movie called Return to Silent Hill. Christoph Gans is coming back to write and direct, which I'm excited about.
Pretty hyped for
It's
it,
going to be
actually.
based on Silent Hill 2. Konami unveiled like basically like everything Silent Hill like last week. Everything
I'm
Silent Hill
surprised they
you could
didn't
possibly
release
imagine.
like a Silent Hill trading card game. Like I like there was like five things. It was like, hey guys, there's a movie, there's a game, um,
Several games.
several games. Luckily, no NFTs. Uh, what was the other? I can't
So
remember.
there's the movie, there's the remake of Silent Hill 2, there's a new game
Remake, right?
called
Right.
Silent Hill F. There's a like Silent Hill like first person like exploration like game coming. There's another Silent Hill game, I think.
Right. Right.
And then there's like a Silent Hill like streaming thing coming out, but they're being vague about what that actually is. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition or not,
Yeah.
especially with how like light on details they were about it.
Yeah. So they just dumped a bunch of Silent Hill stuff, and it's like, why don't you do what every other company is and just like trickle it out? But I'm not complaining.
I saw someone on I can't remember if it was on Twitter or if it was in the comment section of some website, but someone was like, plot twist, Konami funded this with pachinko machines. Which I found funny because Konami like pretty much like exited the video game
I
publishing
was
sphere
going to say, and
after
went
the
full mobile.
after the release of Metal Gear Solid 5 back in 2015, and they pivoted to mobile games and, in Japan, pachinko machines, including releasing pachinko machines based on their IPs. So we did actually get Silent Hill and Metal Gear pachinko machines, or
Hell
in
yeah.
Japan they did. So the joke, plot twist, that this was all funded by pachinko machines is
That sweet pachinko money.
made me chuckle.
For anybody wondering and hearing that word for the first time, gambling is illegal in Japan, much like prostitution is illegal in Japan, but there's so many loopholes around it that, like, very clear, obvious ones. For example, pachinko, you win like tokens or whatever, right? And you can win a prize. And so that you win 800 or whatever, and that prize is, say, like a toaster. And you go up and you're like, I'll have that toaster, please. And they go, here you go, sir. And what you're supposed to do is take that toaster, go to the pawn shop that's owned by the same pachinko parlor, pawn shop that's owned by the same pachinko parlor right next to it, right? And they're like, and they have all the same things inside this pawn shop that that the pachinko prizes were. Huh, weird. And you go, oh, hey, how much will you give me to pawn this brand new toaster? And they go,
800.
here's 800 yen, sir. And they go, thanks. Uh, So it's
I actually didn't know that. That's funny.
technically not gambling. But like, so they're so shameless about it too. Like it's always just in the pawn shop that's like literally right next door. There's even a shared inside door to it. So it's technically a different establishment, and
So funny.
they just bring the toasters back and put them on the right. So it's dumb stuff like that.
Hilarious.
So there you go. That's how Konami made all their Silent Hill money.
Well, I as a fan of that franchise, I am hyped. I'm definitely hyped for that Silent Hill 2 remake and Silent Hill F and
They're,
and that new
the
movie.
Capcom remakes have been fucking hype. So normally I'm like, oh, why are they always remaking things? But like, holy shit, like they've been good. Yeah, for the most part, they've been good.
That 3 remake wasn't that great, but that's mostly just because one, it was super short. Like I think I beat it in like 3 hours on my first playthrough.
Oh,
Yeah, it's super super short. It's also not very faithful to the original game. Like the Resident Evil 2 remake, um, it deviates heavily from the original Resident Evil 2 game, but it all still feels very faithful. Like it captures the essence of that game.
tells like a new story, but like Ada shows up. Ada helps. Is she trustworthy? Right? Like the
Yeah.
beats are still there.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas the Resident Evil 3 remake, it's like they remade the first like hour or two of Resident Evil 3 and then just forgot how the rest of the game played out and then kind of just ended the game.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Remember reading some like reviews about it. Yeah. Um anybody anybody that's a Silent Hill fan is also knowledgeable of PT, the cursed uh PlayStation limited time download of PT, which after people beat PT was revealed that it was a tech demo, playtest demo for a game that was to be called Silent Hills.
Yeah, and that game got quite infamously canceled. The demo is no longer available. I still have a PS4 system backup on a flash drive somewhere with PT on it because you can't even re-download
We
it.
played through it.
Yeah. One of these days I'll pick up when PS4s get like super super cheap. I'll pick up another one just so I can, still have access to PT. Anyway,
Yeah,
there's our
Guillermo del Toro.
There's our Silent Hill. Yeah, and it was supposed to be a game called Silent Hills, but it got canceled. Konami, it was supposed to star Norman Reedus and was supposed to be done by Mr. Metal Gear himself, Hideo Kojima, and Mr. Blade 2 himself, Guillermo del Toro.
But what Hideo Kojima did was he kept his best friends
and went and
stole them from Silent Hills.
Went and made a game called Death Stranding. And if you played Death Stranding, there's definitely some elements in it. I feel like there's some PT DNA in there. Like there's some
bingo PT DNA.
like there are encounters with monsters called BTs that I suspect were probably based on ideas for like how battles with monsters in Silent Hills would go. Anyways,
that's our review of Silent Hill month. Give us a follow on
yeah. Best way to support the show, go to patreon.com/lazorcomb, LAZORCOMB. We're starting at the single $5 tier. Anyway, so yeah, Ash versus Evil Dead is the latest thing currently available in the Evil Dead franchise, and it picks up some 30 years later after the Army of Darkness. Ash, I've watched a little bit of this show, probably only about other than this episode.
I think I've like season 1.
I think I've only watched like the first like 3 or 4 episodes, but
yeah, I've watched like 5, 6 or something.
Yeah. Ash's life hasn't really changed much. He's still working at S-Mart, doesn't have a lot going for him.
Lives in a trailer, talks about the good old days. He's got a very boomer uncle vibe to him
Yeah.
in the way that you're not supposed to like him. Like
Well, yeah,
he's redeemable, but you're not. He's
well,
he's
yeah,
got big uncle energy.
that's the thing with Ash is he's always been like kind of not a great dude.
And the show focuses on that and kind of gives him a found family.
Yeah.
And he works on himself.
Speaking of
And
family,
it kind of showcases the Ash is best when bad things are happening.
mhm.
He shines best through when demons are attacking and he needs to fight for his life.
He is just barely more capable than the average person.
Yes.
And
He's
apparently,
less capable in normal society,
yeah.
but when it comes to the
When it
demons
comes
taking over the planet, he's got that
slightly
edge.
just and that's part of the hilarity of this franchise too, is he's only just slightly better than the average person at dealing with like this
The
kind of mayhem.
deadites and the
Yeah.
mayhem. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, some it starts off strong. We get full exploded, gory father brains.
Yeah, his dad is dead on the road with his head like burst open, his brain on the ground. This was too much for me, man.
It was. Did you even get to the part where he tries to scoop his brains back into his?
I had to look away. It was too much.
Tries to. Good on the special effects team.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ! He grabs some of the slop and the big chunk of like his brain and like tries to like
Put it
putting
back
the
into his
peel
head.
of an orange around the fruit. Tries
Yeah.
to like hold it back together, and he's like, Pablo, have you seen his eye anywhere? His other eyeball anywhere?
I just before that, there's something I did find really funny is Ash is kind of lamenting about like uh how shitty the universe is to him and like how like everyone around him is like destined to die, and his buddy like Pablo is standing beside him. He's like, yeah, everyone around me is gonna die. It's probably gonna be you next, you or whoever or yeah, you know what, just you three, but definitely one of you three is going to die next.
And he's like, no, Jefe, I'm going to take matters into my own hands. I control my fate. So there's been kind of a. This character seems, from what I remember of him in season one, he kind of goes through, oh shit, I'm in over my head, to, no, I want to fight. And oh geez, what's going on? And he's kind of like the sidekick guy.
Totally. If I
But
remember
like he's also
correctly,
smarter than Ash.
if I remember correctly, he's like Pablo is like his neighbor or his coworker or something, but he's like
Something. Oh, and
but
he
he-
believed him, right?
Yeah, yeah,
He's
he's
one
like-
of the few people who believed his stories.
he's like one of the only people who actually believes that Ash fought the Deadites and is like he's like a fan of his because of it.
Yeah. And so then when shit hits the fan, he's like, oh shit, Ash is gonna know what to do.
Yeah.
Spoilers, he doesn't. But the show explores that.
So he's like, yeah, so have you seen his eye around? And it's on the front of Ash's car, the Delta. So this episode goes full Christine.
Uh,
You ever seen the movie Christine?
oh yes.
The John Carpenter film. There's another film called Christine that came out in 2016 that is very different. Very great film. Very different movie though than the Christine that I'm talking about. Christine is a John Carpenter movie from I think 1980 about a classic car that is possessed and turns murderous and is indestructible.
Mm-hmm.
And
Has infinite gas.
yeah, and
Can turn
that's
its high beams on whenever it wants.
that's what's going on with Ash's car here, the Delta. And I will say this demon car, like actually looks pretty badass. It's got like flames around its tires and like it's got blood all over
The
it.
engine
The headlights are red.
headlights are red. There's red underlight coming from inside the dash
Yeah.
and from the engine. So
So
the
the
hood
front grill
glows.
is like glowing red.
And
It's cool.
there's a girl inside, but I don't know if that's a character or just a random person.
I think she's a random person because well she dies in this episode and no one seems to really be
Right.
terribly bothered by it. So I
Right.
think
Okay. Okay.
so I think she's just a rando that the car killed.
Yeah, because Pablo goes to help her, and it shoots its seatbelts out,
Yeah,
and like
like tentacles and like pulls him in.
I
It
like
was a
that.
cool effect.
I like that.
The show's got a lot of neat ideas.
This is great. This is how you low budget,
Um, so
low budget a horror show.
because Christine speeds away with Pablo and what was her name? Lacey, I think she said her name was. Um, the
Lacey
car
or something.
Lacey, yeah, yeah. The car speeds away and Ash goes to find his buddy, who is played by Ted Raimi, which I thought was funny. You were muted.
Uh-oh. How about now?
Yeah, you were good.
Oh, weird. My mute button reversed itself. Um, yeah, Ted Raimi's there.
It's funny
He
because Ted Raimi is Sam Raimi, who I mentioned was the director of the Evil Dead films. Ted Raimi is his brother.
and funny, there's like a demon or like a witch or whatever from like season one that they met that they kind of team up with, played by Lucy
Lucy
Lawless
Lawless. Xena,
and
warrior princess
Xena,
herself.
Warrior Princess. And you know who played Joxer the Mighty?
Oh.
This guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Uh,
So we
fun,
got some
fun,
Xena cast reuniting.
fun fact. I've never actually seen much of Xena. You know, we should do a themed month where it's just like 90s syndicated genre TV.
So like Hercules, Xena, Warrior Princess.
Uh, like Babylon 5. What was another one that was big around that time?
Yeah, I'm trying to think the big ones.
Andromeda, which also had Kevin Sorbo in it.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah. Kevin Sorbo month.
He's not a very good dude, so I don't necessarily want to spotlight him in any kind of way. He's
But yeah, he goes up to Teddy and he's like, "Hey, Teddy, see you cracking open a cold one."
yeah, he's got like several. He is like very drunk, like very visibly drunk, and he's got like several cans of beer on the hood of his car.
And it's revealed that they're like they went to high school together, and indeed, this is his like hometown.
Yeah, so
And they were buddies
Ash needs to borrow his car and
to chase after the Delta.
to chase after the Delta, but he tells Ted Raimi that we're actually going to be going to a titty bar.
And he's like, "Oh, Memory Lane." And he's
Memory
like, "Oh
Lane.
yeah, good times, good times. Yeah, buddy. So anyways, I need your keys." "No, remember Memory Lane." I guess that's a certain street
No,
where
no, Memory Lane was the name of the strip bar.
oh, it was just called that.
Get it, Memory
Yeah.
Lane. Yeah.
Yeah. And indeed, Ash is like, "Oh yeah, ha ha ha. Yeah, we're gonna go there. Tell you what though, why don't you let me drive? That way you can continue drinking that beer on the road." And he's like, "Yeah, good idea."
Hydration. I can stay hydrated. Which that made me laugh so much.
This is a great back and forth here, and makes me want to watch the show.
Yeah.
Right? Like I kind of feel like that charisma and like the there must be some level of comedic improv where they just bounce enough ideas off and then that they just take the best ones, because it feels like that. It feels that
Well,
like that sitcom.
I'm sure Ted Raimi and Bruce Campbell are probably like best buds in real life.
Yeah. Like, come on. Right. And the good dialogue is there, and he's like, "So here we go," and they get in his, what is that? Looks barely drivable.
Yeah, it's some like hatchback shitmobile. Um,
Can't tell what it is yet.
yeah, I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
not
got
a, we're
some
not car
hatchback
people,
with,
folks.
and it's got wheels that probably haven't been like changed from the 80s.
Yeah,
But yeah, we cut to the inside the
these
Delta with the
tires,
red light.
they're stock, baby.
They're stock, baby. Kick them, one of them deflates.
Oh
We can
God.
fix that. Duct tape and super glue.
Yeah.
Or,
Well, and it's funny.
shoe glue.
It's funny you say we can fix that because, like, at the end, the Delta is like completely trashed, and Pablo is like, "Yeah, your car is kind of fucked, basically." And Ash is like, "No, no, it's fine. Like, I'm not gonna leave her here to rot."
Baby's
He's
been
like,
through worse.
and Pablo just starts naming off like things that are wrong with it, and Bruce Campbell is basically like, "Whatever, I can buff that out, no problem."
Nothing a little duct tape and sandpaper won't fix.
Yeah.
So what's happening is the
I appreciated just how laugh out loud funny the show was. Even though
it knows what it is.
the gore was too much for me at times. The brain thing, and also when Pablo is impaled later,
Oh yeah.
that was too much for me too. Especially when like he's trying to like pull like the bar that he's been impaled with out. I'm
That's
like, no, this is too much.
yeah, what the fuck? Yeah, we'll get to that.
Um,
Sorry, the Delta's possessed and just going for a rip down the foggy road.
yeah, and Pablo and this girl that it's kidnapped, Lacey, like they talk and they start like Pablo's like kind of explaining to her what's going on. And then all of a sudden the Necronomicon Ex Mortis itself starts talking from the back seat. And I'm like, wow,
Leatherface himself
I'm
is
like
just hanging out back there.
I didn't know the Necronomicon could talk.
I not only that, it likes to jump on people's faces.
And go all like Jim Carrey in The Mask about it.
Kinda. I recall that kind of happening in season 1.
Hmm.
They allude to that at some point in a dreamscape sequence later. But yeah, something happens here. We cut to their 3 scenes. Right? There's Ash and let's say Ted.
Yeah.
Right? Driving around looking for the Delta. There's Lacey and Pablo in the Delta. And then there's what is her name?
Xena
She's
and
Xena and oh geez, what is she from? Discount what's the actress's name, or where is she from?
Dana De Lorenzo. Oh yeah, yeah. As Kelly. Kelly, that's her name.
Kelly. Right, there we go.
Oh, she's a character in Evil Dead the game and is voiced by the same actress.
Oh. Well, there you go. She's
Evil
in
Dead.
Harold and Kumar.
Harold and Kumar
Do Christmas?
ride Christmas again.
Harold and Kumar strike Christmas back. Harold and Kumar versus the evil Christmas. Harold and Crowbar. Charles and Crowbar do Christmas.
Charles in charge of our days and our lives. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, so
sorry,
Kelly,
what was her name?
Kelly. Yeah.
Kelly.
Kelly and Xena are off looking for Xena's spawn.
Right, and the reason they need to kill the spawn, okay, they stop at Ashley's trailer because they need guns.
Yeah.
I really like Kelly's actress, and or someone's trailer, and underneath the fold out like chair is this like like superhero, like the Punisher-esque like stash of like grenades, taser, assault rifles,
Yeah.
tac flashlights, etc. And they're going after her demon spawn. Is she a demon?
I have no idea.
Demoness? A witch? I don't know. But anyways, Pablo's trying to. He's talking to the book at one point, and the book says that like our souls are bound together and that we're meant to be together or some shit.
Yeah, and he sees his reflection, and like the Necronomicon is just on his face, like a mask.
And don't they get in an accident?
They seemingly get into an accident,
Seemingly, right.
and then Pablo wakes up and he's
This is the
impaled.
part you were talking about. And not only is he impaled, the show doesn't want to just like make you grossed out or show hyperviolence. It wants to make you really uncomfortable
Yeah.
with the jokes on them. It doesn't work on me. But
Well, it
he's
worked on me.
both times. Not only is he impaled, he's like most of it sticking out of his back, and he's walking, looking for help, crying in pain,
Yeah.
as like the metal rod is like scraping on the concrete behind him.
And he encounters Ash, and Ash like is like, "Oh, I'm going to like pull it out." Um, at first, he tries to do it the wrong way, the way that doesn't make any sense.
There's a little bit sticking out of his chest, and then like 5 feet sticking out of his back.
Yeah. And so instead of like trying to pull Pablo off the shorter side of the bar, he tries to do it the other way,
Puts his foot through.
which I'm like, why?
Like I said, the show tries to make you really uncomfortable. But also, how's he alive?
Well,
People can survive impalement, but not through the heart.
and indeed, it turns out this is just some big old hallucination.
Still looks painful.
And oh hey, Samara Weaving is in this show apparently.
Oh.
Cool. I like
So
her.
what happens here? He goes and he looks and he sees somebody else in Ash's face for a second. And the conversation's really weird.
I don't remember.
He's got blue eyes for a second and it's like a scar on his nose. But anyways, I'm not sure who that is, but he this is Lasercomb, folks. We watch a random episode. But he starts acting really weird and he's like, "Hey, you want to be free of that book, don't you, Pablo?" He's like, "Then you have to get in the back of this trunk." And he's like, Hefe, please, I don't want to." And he's like, "Get back there." And I'm like I said, the show wants to make you uncomfortable and you feel bad for Pablo.
I didn't, weirdly.
Oh, it's just like, that fucker deserves it. His friend's like screaming at him, and it's clear to the viewer that this is some fucked up like nightmare escape or whatever, right? But like he's like pleading and like whimpering and crying, and he like gets in the back of the trunk as he's like locked inside, and I'm like, what is the symbolism for? This is fucked up. Because as he's getting in, like holding his wound, he's like, I'm sorry, Hefe, please, no. And he's like, "See you on the other side, amigo." And he wakes up, sort of.
Yeah. Anyway, so it was just a dreamscape. He is
Just
still
kidding, it was all a dream.
he's still in the he's still in Christine, and
Yeah, Christine's going for a rip.
and Ted Raimi and Bruce Campbell catch up with Christine, and
Have a sweet, good old shootout.
oh, actually, before that,
Oh, that was good. Sorry, the conversation.
the
in the car.
conversation involving in the car between Bruce Campbell and Ted Raimi. Ted Raimi looks back and he's like, "Is that a chainsaw?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's mine." He's like, "Well, what's it for?" And he's like, "Uh, ice sculpting." He's like, "Oh, is that a shotgun?" "Yeah, that's mine." "Well, what's that for?" Well, in case they don't pay for the ice sculptures.
Oh,
And he's
makes
like, oh,
sense.
yeah.
Seems legit. That was good.
I like the writing in this show.
Those two had a good exchange, and he's like, "Hey, take the wheel for a second," and he's like, "Huh? Why?" And he's like, I can't remember what excuse he like makes up,
Well, at
but
first he pulls the when they're driving along and they see Christine. First he pulls the his shotgun out and he's like, "Hey Ted, sit back." And he just fires it like over him and like blows his ears out. And
right,
when he starts screaming from like having because like guns are loud, like you can go deaf from that.
you
Um
can, and I am.
um So instead of doing that again, he's like, "Here, take the wheel." And he's like, "What? Why?" He's like, "Just take the wheel, damn it." And so he
So
tries
Ted's got
crawling.
like a beer in one hand, and he's like,
So he tries to like crawl out the window, and he's having a hard time with it. And he's like, "Here, Ted, take the shotgun." And he gets him to hold the shotgun and the wheel. And so he crawls out and is like, "Okay, Ted, give me the shotgun back." And he starts shooting at Christine, seemingly with unlimited ammunition,
as one does.
with double-barreled shotguns. He
Yeah, maybe
definitely
it's a
fired.
quadro barreled shotgun. If anybody's watched Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2, Medieval Dead, The Deadening, um, he has an unusual amount of infinite ammo, or he'll fire more than twice
Yeah, from his
often.
double-barreled
He
shotgun
only needs to reload when it's convenient.
when it's for dramatic tension,
Yeah,
basically.
and I get that they don't care about that on the show here.
No, they don't.
Yeah,
It's fine, and I kind of admire that kind of tenacity.
yeah. And then something eventually, Ted Raimi like grabs the e-brake, which somehow still works in, in his car,
Right.
and pulls the e-brake and stops. And he's like, dude, okay, stop. What the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, hey, there is some realism in this show here.
Well,
And they
what
have a
I
conversation that I really like.
well, they have a conversation, and what I noticed here, and this is a thing that you see happen in movies and TV all the time. Ted Raimi sobered up way too quickly, considering how like slosh drunk he was. And you see this a lot in film and television, and it
Something
bugs me.
shocking or serious happens, and well, indeed, not physically but mentally you can sober up quick when your adrenaline's going and your heart's beating. You're still physically clumsy, but you can mentally kind of be like, whoa, guys, stop, put down the sword. I know everybody's drunk and they think it's cool to like practice samurai sword fighting, but put down the swords. But anyways, I understand that grope. That gripe, I mean grope. um
Yes, as someone who is inebriated quite often, if only it were so easy
Yeah.
to just
All you
turn
got
it
to do
off.
is open a closet and have like a spooky like mask swing down and scare you out of it.
Uh, Z
So
Xena. You said you liked the conversation that they have. What's
the
the gist of it?
conversation there is like, hey, I've got a level with you, buddy. We're not going to memory lane. And he's like, what? Man, I wanted things to be like old times. What the hell? And they get out and they have a conversation.
Yeah, and
And he's like, okay, I'll give you the abridged version. Evil car, deadites, I hunt them, possessed book, gotta save my friend.
Ted Raimi just believes him right away. Like he pauses for a second. And he's like, "All right, let's go kill us some demons."
Let's go kill some fucking demons. Crack. And he's like, sorry, Chet. Or sorry, Ted. It's the end of the road for you. And he's like, no, man, I can help. I can kill demons. We're in it together till the wheels fall off, buddy. And he's like, there's something a man just has to do on his own. And he's like what, dude? He's like drinking in the morning, like putting antifungal ointment on your. And Chet finishes his sentence. Balls. Yeah. So you get it. I got to do it alone. So he's like, so if you can just drop me off at the old smash 'em up, so I guess like a derby
Right.
kind of thing, and drop me off there, I'll catch you on the flip flop.
And so he gets Ted Raimi to drive him there. And I'm like, you've been driving the whole time. Why don't you just
Also, this
drive?
guy's wasted.
This guy's wasted. So
Well,
like,
you
why
drive and then give him the car,
and
let
then
him
give him the
sober
car?
up some, and let him
And-
kill himself on the
I
way
was,
back.
I was gonna say, let him kill himself driving drunk.
But I do like that dichotomy there is that he's stupid enough to ask him to drive, but he doesn't want him to involved in his shit because he'll inevitably die, because earlier in the episode everybody that he lets get close and brings in on this ends up dead.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that, even though he's got a friend who's like, let's go kill some fucking demons. He's like, nah, you hang back, man. Killing demons is my thing. And then
Also-
his friend
also,
actually agrees.
Also, I feel like Ted Raimi would just get in his way. Like he would be a liability.
Yeah. So I liked that. But yeah, you were saying we arrive at like some spooky like Silent Hill factory
Yeah, so
where the heroines are going to shoot up some demons.
so Kelly and Xena go to find Spawn in this
As is tradition.
as is tradition in this like abandoned warehouse, and indeed these are basically like the monsters from The Descent. There's
Honestly,
actually
they're kind of fucking scary.
no there's actually some really good like horror direction going on.
I'm genuinely like there. This felt like a horror movie.
Yeah, totally.
Like the way the light goes and they come out of like the shadows and stuff. It's like, wait, there's scary parts in this?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that at all.
Yeah. And yeah, they have something that helps them kill them permanently. It's a dagger.
Yeah,
It's like a
Xena
magic dagger.
has this dagger that has a hilt that looks like it's made out of bone or something.
Mm-hmm. And they go to kill her babies. And they do, and the dagger gets knocked out of her hand, and
Then another one
they
shows
team
up,
up
and yeah.
yeah, and there's tension as like one's about to kill her, and there's not much to say. It's just kind of like that, like taking action figures and be like, and then they fought, and then she kicked him off of them, and
Yeah.
it's cool. But the climax is going to the old like shut down derby, and it was his friend Ted, Chet, that was like, oh well, I know where we're going. And he's like, what? There's no way you can know. And he's like, yeah, we're going to the old derby. And he's like, how did you know? And he's like, because that's where you got the Delta in the first place. And he's like, right.
I like how Bruce Campbell like pieces this together. It's like something along the lines of like, oh right, it must be going there because you know I had the Delta the first time I banged blah blah like 40 years ago or whatever.
Right, but
And
his
and it was-
logic is wrong.
His logic is very wrong. And then Ted Raimi is like, well, it just killed your father. And like your father got the car, gave you the car at that derby. So maybe this is like some kind of full circle thing where the car is going there because it wants to kill you for the sake, like for the
That's
sake
where
of
it
closure.
started, and that's where it will end things. And he's like, come on, man, keep up. And I'm like, who is this random? He's almost breaking the fourth wall. Right.
And Bruce Campbell is like, right.
That's
could
a valid
be,
theory too.
that could be true too, I guess. I just thought it was funny. This like drunk guy actually has this like fairly like intellectual like take on this, whereas
This,
like Bruce, whereas
This
like Bruce Campbell,
knowledge of narrative structure
yeah,
that
whereas,
almost breaks the fourth wall.
whereas Bruce Campbell is just like, yeah, it's probably going there because I boned some chick there in the back seat.
In the back of the Delta.
Yeah.
And yeah, this guy Chet just explains things to him, and
I love how much of a chode Ash is.
and to give the that's really good writing, because
It
it's
is,
not hanging a lantern on something. It's kind of like the opposite. It's like, hey, just in case you were wondering, like it's kind of like the writers being like, See, we can be smart, and I actually really appreciate it. Like, I don't know if every episode is like this, but like this was like exactly kind of like what I was hoping
Right.
Evil Dead TV show would be. And there's a really like dramatic kind of like final showdown.
Showdown
Uh
between the Delta and Ash is like basically trying to get the car to stop because it's his car. He doesn't want to wreck
he
it.
doesn't want to destroy it, so there's kind of like a matador
Yeah.
for like sequence, right? Um Lucy's still in there for now. Like she's in
Somehow
the car.
I can't remember how, but somehow Pablo and Lacey like get out of the car, and Pablo is like talking to the Necronomicon, and the
He
Necronomicon is like I there's a way we can, because he's gonna take like a dagger and like stab it into the Necronomicon to break the possession of the car, and the Necronomicon is like, wait, hold on, there's another way. You can just send me back to the dimension that I came from, and that will break the spell.
Right. And I think Lacey is
Lacey, yeah.
hit by the car, or does she make it away?
I'm pretty sure she's killed by the car. Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
As like ashes on top, dramatically.
Yeah.
And Pablo in the meanwhile has a shard of glass from the
Yeah.
broken window, and he's like stabbing the shit out of the Necronomicon, and it's bleeding.
Yeah.
Like it's a living thing that you can kill.
Well,
And
yeah,
I'm like, holy fuck.
like I was saying, but then the Necronomicon is like, wait, you don't have to kill me. You can just send me back to my home dimension, and then everything will be fine. He's like, okay, how do I do that? He's like, read the word.
Oh,
Meanwhile,
bleh, he spits out like a piece of paper.
yeah,
Right. Pablo can read the ancient language. I
yeah.
can't remember why, but he can. And there's like an incantation on this little piece of paper. And I'm like, yeah, definitely trustworthy. Right.
So Ash ends up like stabbing his chainsaw into the engine of the car.
And like black oil and shoots out. And it's all very dramatic.
Yeah.
It's like a death of a character.
Yeah, totally. Pablo ends up reading the word on the piece of paper that the Necronomicon spat out, and it seems to like break the possession at first. And so they open up the trunk, and they see the trunk of the car has become like a portal, literal portal to hell.
Literal portal to hell.
Which
And
they're
he's
like,
like, and Ash is like, oh, that's not good. Or wait a second, I don't remember that. I don't remember installing that, or some quip like that. And he's like, Pablo's like, Hefe, this is how we get rid of the book forever. And Ash is like, I don't know, sending an evil book to evil demons kind of seems like we're just doubling down on evil.
right?
Because if we have it, then we have the book, and demons don't have it.
But then he's like,
I trust you.
you know what? How could it get any worse than it
But
already
can
is?
things get worse? And I'm
So-
like, I have a feeling the other two wouldn't let the. I'm starting to see like a difference between the men and and the women in this. Like these two are just kind of like a comedy of errors,
Yeah.
and the other two are like cleaning up like messes, or at least that's how this episode is portrayed.
So they throw the Necronomicon into the portal to hell.
And Xena like clutches her like stomach or chest or whatever, and she's like, "Oh, so the Necronomicon, it's gone." Like
We have to
she's
hurry.
connected to it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how or why, but if I end up
Like she
watching the
knows
show,
that
maybe
it's
I'll
left Earth
find out.
somehow.
Yeah.
Huh. And they just kind of like leave the Delta there and walk off into the sunrise, and they're like, well, at least we don't need to move the Delta because they're
Yeah.
like in a junk. Hey, this is as good a final resting place as any. And this is the part where he's like, you rinse your filthy mouth out with rinse that filthy mouth out. I'm not getting rid of that beautiful beast. What? Because it has a few dings, and
He's like, it killed several teenagers, and it's
it
like,
killed a bunch of kids. your dad. Its trunk is a portal to hell,
Yeah.
and it
Uh,
almost killed us.
that's pretty much the end of the episode. The episode ends with a jump scare. I just can't remember what it is now.
Nothing a lube job won't fix, Pablo. Oh yeah, what does it end with? Yeah, and he's like, but you drove your chainsaw right through the engine block. Ash is like, don't you know it? Nothing a good what does he say? Something dumb. You said it earlier. Nothing a good. Yeah, we can buff that out.
I can buff that out, no problem.
I can fix it. My dad's got a righteous set of tools. Um, yeah. So what's the jump scare?
There's a jump scare
the
right at the
camera.
end.
The camera pans over to like the trunk, I believe.
Yeah.
And the trunk breaks off, and like a fiery explosion happens, and a spooky demon man on fire flies at the camera.
Yeah. So the Necronomicon doesn't sound like was on the up and up.
Mm-hmm. Who would have thought that you couldn't trust an evil book?
Right? If you can't trust a evil demonic book bound in human flesh and inked in human blood, who can you trust nowadays?
Who can you trust? Remember when you used to be able to just let your kids like trick or treat and walk down the street by themselves and not have to end up with the Necronomicon inside their pillowcase at the end of the night?
And nowadays it's the Necronomicon is babysitting those kids, damn it.
That's right. Vote for me on a platform against Necronomicons.
Yeah.
We'll take them out of schools and burn them.
And that's some worthy book burning right there. Too bad those aren't the books that Republicans are burning.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But to find out more, you'll have to follow us on our Patreon. We talk a lot about the spicy things. Yeah. And speaking of spicy things, that's our episode.
Mm-hmm.
And we just watched Siege. We just watched directed by Michael J. Bassett.
Yep.
We just watched a random episode of Ash versus Evil Dead. But that begs the question: would you tune in next week?
I'm kind of torn because I really liked the writing and I thought it was genuinely laugh out loud funny at times, but also the gore is too much for me.
And it seems pretty present in
yeah.
everything.
So I would tune in. I would cautiously tune in next week.
And then see what the gore factor is of every episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if it's like this, like I wouldn't be able to stick with this show consistently.
Okay, so a cautious tune in next week.
Yeah.
I think I will tune in next week. I think I'll go back to the last episode I remember and see you on the flip-flop.
All right.
Yeah, there you have it, folks. We both give a cautious tune in next week.
I might even watch more after we're done recording, just to.
And we all know that we never lie whenever we say that we're going to watch something.
Just to give it the old college try,
The old maximal try.
Yeah. So that was episode 51 of the LaserComb podcast. If you want to support this show and pick an episode or pick a show for us to review a random episode of, you can go to patreon.com/lazorcomb, LAZORCOMB. $5 a month. That also gets you bonus preamble audio for this and all the other shows we do, commentary tracks, and more. So if you want to get in on that, go to patreon.com/lazorcomb. Follow me on Twitter at LaserComb. Cal, you are at?
You can follow me on spooky Twitter at NeoKal, NEO_KAL. Woo.
We'll be back next week with our final installment of our horror-themed month, where we're going to be talking about something not horror per se, but it involves creatures that are commonly associated with horror, classic universal horror, in fact. We're going to be talking about a little show that was a series when we first started this podcast was a series that was in the back of my mind that I wanted to talk about like right from the get-go. It's a little show from 1997 called Mummies Alive.
Damn it, you maniacs. We've talked about it geez, it feels like a year. Feels like we've talked about it. We've subtly referenced it here or there. And, well, it's happening.
And to figure out what episode of Mummies Alive we're going to watch, we're going to go to the old trusty number generator. So I'm going to hit screen share. And Mummies Alive had 42 episodes. So, to the old number generator, 1 random episodes between 1 and 42. And here we go with the strength of Raw. 8.
Ooh, 8, the spookiest number. Woo.
Goodbye, Mr. Chips.
Goodbye, Mr. Chips.
Goodbye, Mr. Chips.
Looks like a Chantra has been unleashed into the real world and swaps herself out for Presley's real science teacher.
Who's trapped beyond the Western Gate. Roth then realizes that he remembers Chantra and not a very pretty sight for him. Okay.
Seems legit.
It does. So we'll be back next week with that. And until then, I've been The Siege, one of your hosts.
And I'm your other host, NeoCal.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week.
And happy Halloween.